All right, so here's our first session of the day, Adam Gross. Thank you for your time, Adam. I know we talked last meeting about some ideas for you to present. You've been very busy the last month or two. Everybody's brought you in, so thanks for taking the time for joining us today. And I will hand it over to you now.
Thanks, Greg. And can you make me presenter, because I don't have the option to share?
Yeah, I meant to do that. Let's do that. Make presenter. You have been promoted.
Yay. All right. Well, here we go. Well, thank you all for coming to see Morris. Sorry you have to see me. Hopefully you will still stick around for this. Now, I will say, if you've been to Wmug, if you went to the Wmug user group last week or two ago, this is a repeat. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it. So, hey, I'm Adam Gross. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Enterprise Mobility, and today I'd like to talk to you about the ConfigMgr Admin Service and why it's important, and all of the cool things that it can help you do, and the things that it's already helping you do that you may not even know are happening in the background. So the title is Any Device, Anywhere Admin Service. So my agenda is to kind of at least level set everyone on WMI and kind of what it does and why it's around, and why ConfigMgr uses it, and how that all translates into the future of admin service, what admin service is, why you need it, what it does. And then we will look at tenant attach, and in between we'll do some, or actually mostly demos. So, but for a moment, we will take a minute and talk about WMI. So WMI is, or in the ConfigMgr world, referred to as the SMS provider. The SMS provider, SMS provider has historically been the engine that uses WMI to communicate between SCCM and SQL. It has now been expanded to include the ConfigMgr admin service as part of the SMS provider. But so WMI is the underlying bits that ConfigMgr uses to manage everything. So if you were to, this is Wmi Explorer. If you've never used it, go check it out. It's written by Wmi Pemnani. I've basically pimped this out in every presentation because I think it's fantastic. So if you were to use Wmi Explorer or WebMTest, or just use PowerShell to get here, on your site server, you will see a node called root SMS, and then SMS, and then a site underscore whatever your site code is. So if you've ever clicked the button in the admin console to connect your PowerShell ICE to, or just PowerShell, or either one, that's what it's connecting to. So it is, it's connecting to the SMS provider on your primary site server. And so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on that. Hopefully most of you are familiar with how that works. But ultimately, in here are all of your classes and things, and these classes actually tie back into the database. So the data is not actually sitting here; it's actually sitting in SQL. So where if I go to SQL and I select star from VR system, it is actually, there's underlying tables that go to and everything, but that's the corresponding query to WMI's equivalent of select star from SMS R system. So the SMS R system class, if we were to go browse to it here, I'm not going to make you watch me scroll through it because there's a ton of classes. If this will catch up, come on. Let's imagine that that's working. Okay, there we go. All right, so in here you can browse through it, and so you can see each instance. So this represents a row, each row in the database, in the table. So essentially, your ConfigMgr, all of the ConfigMgr bits and pieces all tie back into SMS provider, and it's fantastic. And in fact, if you check out your log files on your primary site server, you can look for SMS Prov, which stands for SMS Provider Log. And the SMS Provider Log will actually show you all of the interactions that things are making to the provider service. And that includes things that you do inside the console, as well as client actions and things that are checking in. So this is a way that you could, click the wrong button. This is a way that you can monitor what's going on in your environment. You can see which queries are being run, all that sort of stuff. So for instance, if inside the console, if I were to navigate to some different sections of the console, I should be able to see those items get queried in the SMS provider and be able to match those up with the actions that I just took. And so there are, I will stop scrolling in a moment, I promise. I'm trying to find a good entry here. So it's checking for permissions here. And then if we go a little bit further, so then it's, this one is doing an actual query. So it's saying select star from SMS site, where site code is, there we go, look at that, snag or zoom it. So this is what we're looking at. So this is the WQL query that it's doing, but then here is the SQL query that it's doing. So you could then take each of these, you could take this and drop this query into the Wmi Explorer or in PowerShell, wherever you want to query from, and you should be able to run this, hopefully, and that gives us the result of that query. But if we were to then go back into there and grab the next query, which is the SQL one, select star from, and go back into SQL, new instance, and run that query, we should get the same results. So they're doing the same things. So that's Wmi, that's what Wmi is doing. So so then let's take a peek at the admin service and what it is and what it does. So the admin service is a web API, and it can be accessed on your site via going just by browsing to your site server name /admin service, and there are two routes that it goes to. So v1.0 is one of the routes, and Wmi is another route, and each of so I bet you can't guess what Wmi goes to. So Wmi is the way that the admin service is bridging the gap between Wmi and the web interface at this point. So eventually, I think we should expect to see less and less things using Wmi and more things using communicating via the admin service, which is sitting on top of, it's bridging SQL and Wmi today. So it's, but eventually we should see less and less communication between admin service to Wmi to SQL. It should go admin service to SQL directly. So that's what I think we're starting to see already, and we should be able to continue to see that. But in order to make the admin service usable today, it made sense for them to build admin service on top of Wmi, so it can become a replacement for direct Wmi stuff. So then you would say, okay, I'm not going to query Wmi, I'm going to query the admin service to do things. And at some point, then they can pull out the Wmi component where admin service is talking to Wmi, and they can replace it with admin service talking directly to SQL, but they wouldn't have to change the classes and things like that, and you could keep the same queries. So hopefully that makes sense on kind of what's happening there. So you'll see that I just did a query to SMSR system, and so you can query most of the classes that exist in here today in on your primary site Wmi repository. You can query all of these things in the admin service today and get the same types of results that you get. Now it's read-only, and there are some limitations to what you can do. So certain classes won't show all of the data. So they're still adding on to this, but we can definitely see where this stuff is going and see how it's progressing. So it's pretty cool. So one of the things that you can do with the admin service, though, is this other route. This one takes us to all of the new stuff that has been being added. And so if we actually, it's not very readable. I mean, it's not designed to be readable. So it's a web interface, not a website. So, but there is some basic formatting that happens. So if I do admin service v1.0 and then I do $metadata, and this is case sensitive, $metadata will take us to all of the entities, properties, all of the methods that are available in this route. And what we're seeing is that all of the development work, or most of the development work, especially for new things, is occurring in the admin service or in this route. So in the v1.0 side of things, and less in the WMI side of things. Though they're still, so if they're adding new, they're generally adding it to the versioned route. If they're completing the duplication of WMI into the WMI route, then they're still doing work there as well. So if you load a technical preview, you'll find that you can actually execute methods, WMI methods from the admin service directly. So there are definitely more features becoming available inside the tech preview. So we're able to see that this is where that's all headed. The important thing about the versioned route is that this is kind of the magic piece that's making tenant attach work, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But so I was querying VR system, or sorry, yeah, VR system, but there is a SMSR system on the WMI side. So the equivalent in the versioned route is there is a device class, or it's not a class, it's an entity. So here, so that view, zoom in, so we can see the device entity, and then so it's got a key of a machine ID, which is is a resource ID, and then you can see all of the properties and things associated with that. And so if I want to query a device, or if I want to do all devices, the equivalent of SMSR system or VR system, any of that, I would just do device, and it would produce a full list of those results. However, my environment seems to have a bug where the underlying query for this takes like 50 seconds to run. And so this will time out on me. In a normal world, this would work, and I haven't been able to get it to work. So what I did is instead done a query using a resource ID. So this is the syntax to be able to get a single device by resource ID. And so then this is nicely unformatted JSON. But if you were to take this and run it through PowerShell or convert it into something more readable, you would see that all of the information returned here is the same as the information that you're going to get in your SMSR system query here, or in the query if you do it in SQL. And additionally, there is an admin service log. So every time that we query something from admin service, it is very much very similar, in fact, possibly a replacement to the SMS provider log that we were just looking at. And so you can see where I attempted to query the device node, and this is where it's throwing the error for me because it's timing out. But if I scroll up above that, I should be able to see the previous or the working query where I passed in or you can see where I passed in metadata here. Looks like it didn't. Anyway, let me just go refresh it. Oh, sorry, that's what I had it already staged. I didn't just run it. That's why. Okay, so I just refreshed it, and so now we should see that entry show up here as well, so we can see what's going on. So what's great about this is, like, I knew what I was running here, but there's times where maybe you want to see what's happening, just like we did with the SMS provider, to be able to see what's happening with SQL and WMI. We can now see what things are using the admin service. And so you may have seen at some point, and maybe possibly have even enabled this. If we go to our, I think it's our site properties, it's going to be hierarchy or site, it's going to be the hierarchy config. So if we go into our hierarchy configuration, we can enable the config manager console. Oh boy, come on, zoom it. I zoomed in the wrong. Okay, let's see. Well, as you guys probably know, this is inside an RDP window. Anyway, you can see it down here at the bottom. So enable the config manager console to use the administration service. And whenever you do this, it enables certain components of the admin console to then rely on the admin service for functionality. And so you can see it's starting to replace things on the back end. So one of those things that it uses is console connections. So if I click console connections, that actually did a query to the admin service to get results for me. And I can verify that by looking here. Actually, while I was using the console, my console itself heartbeated in. So it sent a post method with some data to it in it to indicate that that I've got an active console connection. So that was from my actual console usage. And then whenever I browsed to the data, I did a get method. And if I go grab that, I should be able to take that same query and put that into the web browser and get the same usage data that it's showing me in the console. So you can see how we're already starting to get that integration created. One of the things that you can also take a peek at is inside your so your admin console. Each installation of your admin console comes with a set of files, and so you'll have this XML storage, and it's not XML storage. It's the doggone it. Which one is it? It's bin web, and well, these are your dashboards. If you want to see how the dashboards are created, you can come and check those guys out. But it's the XML storage, console root, and inside here there are files that get used for rendering basically configuring the console on what to use. And so you could actually look at those and see which ones are using the OData connector versus, the admin service / OData versus WMI to be able to pull stuff in. And so if we were to look at, I have one, let's see, I think I have one here. Okay, so hide this. All right, so this is looking at the site configuration node setup or file, and what we can see is that it has a type of OData. And so Config Manager uses OData, and I'll revisit that in just a moment because I realize I did not clarify what that meant. But you can see that it has a query. So OData is saying use admin service, not WMI, because there are other entries that will say type of WMI in the same file. So if you were to swap, and we have done this, we actually Kim Oppelfens and we hacked this and tested that. So you can switch the type from WMI to OData and then change the query from a WMI query to using an admin service formatted query. And so if I take that and paste it in here, this is the query that it's actually running in the console to generate the data that's there. So it's still querying WMI, but it's using the admin service to do that. So just another piece of the puzzle there of what's going on in the background and how things are being swapped out. So, all right. So that is admin service. So hopefully I didn't beat that one too much. I've got a blog, kind of a centralized blog post on admin service. There's the Microsoft Docs have stuff for it. And then there are several other folks that have written some things, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So, but one thing to talk about is OData. So OData is the Open Data Protocol, and it is a standard for how data gets formatted and how to have a standard and consistent way to interact with a REST API. And the admin service uses OData 4.0, and so if you want to learn about the syntax and everything, I would suggest starting here because it has all sorts of cool things on how to build your queries and things. And actually, Nathan Zienert has a great post. I started doing some of it, and Nathan did a much better job on giving query examples and things and digging into that. So check out his site. He's got some really good stuff there. So that's what OData is. All right, so let's shift gears and let's talk about how we can use the admin service to get data from in Power BI. So Power BI has a nice built-in feature called an OData connector, and we can actually just query it directly, and it will give us all sorts of cool things. So cmo1.asd.net/admin service. And while I'm typing this, does anybody have any questions at this point? I mean, you can. I've got the chat open on another screen here, so if you've got anything, just let me know or tag me in it as you post it. Certainly glad to stop and answer as we go. So the one word of caution I will say is that for WMI, okay, so Steven's asking the minimum version of ConfigMgr, I guess, required to enable admin service. Admin service has been around for quite a while. In fact, I cover quite a bit of it, or I've been tracking it for a while. So it's since like 2018, I think. Let me see. Got just a master link at the top of my blog here that breaks down all the different bits and pieces. But yeah, so October, yeah, so 1810 tech preview, and then we were starting to see it in the current branch. So it's definitely been around for a bit. So thanks for that link there.
Hey, Adam, one other question for you. I think it was Gary mentioned earlier, asking if you can use the admin service during OSD to remove machine from a collection.
Not today, no. That's, and the collection membership itself is a complex class, I believe, and that's not the right word for it, but I know that we were trying to do that previously. So Tech Preview has enabled some things. So if you can do it in WMI, you might be able to do it in admin service, but only in Tech Preview right now. You can't use it for, so it's basically read only today. There are a few things that we were able to test previously, and it's been a while since I've written a post about it. Obviously, geez, man, it's been a year. So I really need to kind of document some kind of where we are on some of this stuff, but I was able to successfully like upload and create new package and things like that. But setting membership is a bit complex because essentially you have to, adding a device to a collection, you actually create a rule. And so you have to be able to build a rule, and then you have to add the rule to the collection entity. And that's too complex today for the admin service.
Okay, thanks.
So that makes sense. All right, so then let's jump over to the, I think this is where I was headed. Oh, sorry, nope, too soon. Okay, so then one caution is if you were to load WMI with the metadata tag in the browser, there are thousands of classes, and I find that it ends up crashing the browser trying to download all that stuff. So, so anyway, I've just for demo purposes and things, I've just been using this. So, so just to give you an example on just a way that this potentially could be used. Now, I've not found that it's that it's better yet than just querying SQL directly, and you may not end up needing to query SQL or to use this way, but just proof of concept, something cool that you can do. So when you query it, it gives you, so this view here is using the metadata view that we were looking at for v1.0, and it's formatting it nicely for us to query from. And then once I've selected collections, I can then load collections into my Power BI and have it as a new table to query from. So it's just as simple as that. You can just go and grab things and put them in directly into Power BI and then use them instead of having to query the database directly. So just, you know, an option. I'm not going to get into how to use Power BI or anything, but you can see all the data is got brought in, and it's an alternative possibility here. For me, it's just about poking at it and seeing, okay, well, what are all the possibilities? What are all the things that are coming? Kind of looking under the covers and trying to see what all it can do and everything. So now let's switch over and let's talk about tenant attach. If you have a 2002 and greater, you're not going to have greater than 2002. Inside your co-management configuration settings in your console, there is an option to enable tenant attach. And tenant attach is not the same as co-management. And I will get into the nuance of that in just a moment. But let's see if I can get my wizard to load here. So configure upload. So you can upload your devices to the MIM admin center, and this enables tenant attach. So if I could zoom it there, oh yay, worked a little bit, still off, I don't know why. But anyway, so enable upload to the admin center, and this will sync all of your devices objects into the MIM admin console, or in the Intune portal as you've known it, or whatever. So yeah, let's see. Okay, let's see. Sorry. Okay, so that's going to upload your devices to the MIM admin center. So once you do that, then if you come into the MIM admin center, which that is not, so you go to, so it's no longer should you be going to the portal.azure.com to get to your Intune portal. You should be going to endpoint.microsoft.com. That link is going to go away real soon. So if you were using the Intune link here, this will be going away, and it should be alerting you in the status bar here. So on August 1st, that's going to be going away. So just know that, switch over, start using this. This is where they're putting all the new cool stuff as well. Okay, so once you've enabled tenant attach, what you will get is you will start seeing your devices appear in the admin center here, and it's not. So I've got multiple classes of device here, so I want to point out the difference between them so that makes sense. So I have Intune devices, which are just Intune MDM managed devices. Didn't mean to click that. I've got Intune managed, I've got ConfigMgr managed. These are tenant attached devices. And then I have co-managed devices. These are on-prem, or not necessarily on-prem. These are devices that have the ConfigMgr client installed on them. So either Intune or Azure AD joined only, or hybrid Azure AD joined devices that have the ConfigMgr client on them. So that lets ConfigMgr and Intune both manage the device together, because it's better together. But the ConfigMgr only devices, these are our tenant attached devices. And you'll notice that if I click on that guy, it's going to show me these three new buttons. And these buttons may seem similar to what you have seen in your ConfigMgr console before. These are client actions for your ConfigMgr device. Now, if I go to a co-managed device, you'll see that I have more actions. So these are my MDM or Intune enabled actions that you get as part of co-management. But then hidden in this under the dots are my tenant attached actions as well. So the thing to note, the difference between a co-managed device and a ConfigMgr tenant attached device is that co-managed allows Intune to communicate directly to the device. So if I click on these actions, so if I click on retire, wipe, delete, sync, any of these guys, these are going to trigger an action directly to the client via the MDM provider on that device. So it's a direct communication to the device. This is allowing Intune to communicate to it. The tenant attached functionality does not, yeah, no way, Andrew, I'm not retiring my device. I've accidentally already wiped computers, so I'm not doing this. But these guys, the sync machine provider policy, user policy, app eval, and we're going to start seeing more things show up. These all use the admin service in the background to proxy the traffic to your SMS provider server, and then communicate to your on-premises device. The thing that's important to understand about that is, I know a lot of folks say that you don't want to have your devices in the cloud. Well, so this is my server. This is my ConfigMgr server. It does not know about Intune. It does not know about the admin center. It cannot communicate. I mean, it is communicating to it because it's the thing that's proxying, but this is a bad server choice. But my domain controller, it's not communicating here. Whenever I sync the policy, this traffic goes through the cloud gateway down to the device, or down to my SMS provider, and then proxies that traffic using the BGB service. Talk about it in a minute. Or BGB channel, to then send the command over to the device. When the device gets the traffic, it gets the result, it sends the traffic back to the BGB server, back to the admin service, back to through the gateway, back up to report itself up. So the important distinction there is that these devices are not in the cloud, and they're not cloud managed. They're still fully on-prem managed. Consider this to be a web console component for your ConfigMgr environment. So you should feel safe and comfortable synchronizing or enabling tenant attach for everything, and including your servers, so that you can then have a web interface to be able to manage your server devices. So hopefully that's clear. Okay, so I've clicked around on that enough, and so I will now show you that process. If I can find that device again, where did it go? Here we go. Okay, so this is a device that I have that is on. That is not it. Man, scroll is jumpy on me right now, sorry. Okay, so here's my device, and I'm going to go and I want to sync the machine policy, and I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to quickly jump to my already open BGB server log and my CM gateway notification worker log. And my notification gateway log should show me, so at 11:37, I should have gotten some traffic, and I did. So I got a response, and here we go. So I have a request machine policy. So the template ID is request machine policy, and that's what I told it to do, and it's got some other information that it sent down for us. And then on the next line, it gives me a task GUID and targeted device ID. So I can see that I got something from there. So then this takes that request, and it forwards a BGB remote task. So it forwards this to the BGB server. So BGB is a big green button. This is your fast channel. This is the way that we do the instant actions, things like when your device is keeping your device healthy, other things like keeping the light on in the console, whether it's live and active and all that sort of stuff. And then it also includes all of the cool bits here of the client notification channel. So like if I want to do any of these all use the client notification service, or the BGB channel to communicate with the device, the run script, the endpoint protection, install client, or not install, the install application. All of those guys use the BGB channel to communicate to the device and to rapidly take action on those. So if I switch over now to my BGB server log, we should see that at 11:37, I got a task. And so it's retrieving the push task from the database, and it's generating a status report. And so then the BGB service said it started the push task on this device with a push ID of 6162 and task ID of 6106. Okay, so now, sorry for the jumping, we'll get there. Okay, so now if I jump over to my target device that I actually sent this request to, should see in this is the, oh, well, that didn't work. CCM notification agent log on the client. You'll see that I got a at 11:37. So all of this happened at 11:37. So this was just that instant. So you can see I got the request, and then it began. So it's just logging all the things that happened on the device, but it actually will send the response back. But let's see. So here it is. So I received the push ID of 6162 and task ID of 6106. So that's the handoff occurring. So you'll notice that the traffic did not come from the admin service to the device. It proxied through your SMS provider server / admin service to talk to the device. The thing that's neat about that is that this is using the admin service functionality to perform this. It's just using the admin service backend, DLLs and things to perform these actions. It's not using, so I'm not going to see this traffic in the admin service console, which or logs, which is where I originally expected to see it, because I thought, okay, cool, it will be sending those things through the admin service using the WMI provider and stuff to do this, but that's not actually what it's doing. So there are some super secret things happening behind the scenes, but it is in fact using the admin service to perform these things. So let's see. So I think I followed the traffic. Okay, so then the one last thing is, okay, so where is that in the database? Because we saw it talk about going to the database. So if I go to BGB task, the BGB tasks table, sorry, I've got everything zoomed so much. Okay, so this is my last query. So if I refresh, I should have 6106, and that's where it created the entry. So you'll see all of these BGB things listed here. So this is all your fast channel stuff, including like, here's your live data. So this is where it's updating the logged on user and your current boundary group and all those sorts of things. So that stuff's kind of cool. This is where all that data is being stored. I haven't gone through all of them yet to really understand what's how that all is working, but what all is stored here. But essentially, this is where all that stuff is happening. Let me switch over to my to my PowerShell again here. Oh, I was supposed to show you how to use PowerShell to do WMI 4 ways. So you can do a get WMI object, get sim instance, you can then query the admin service directly, or you can use the get CM device to do all 4 different ways to do the same thing there. Let me see. I think I have another example here. Okay, so I have another query or another sort of PowerShell to perform these WMI actions using this is the initiate client actions, and so inside, so all of those items I just showed you in the console, all the things you can trigger on the device, so download computer policy, user policy, etc., they all have a task ID associated with them inside of WMI, and they rely on a WMI class called SMS client operation, and then there's a client operation status. These are the equivalent to the BGB tables that we were just looking at. So as things move more to the BGB, we'll see them show up there instead of in the WMI places. But essentially, you could take, and I believe this only worked, fairly certain, this only works on the tech preview side today. But this is where you can this is what we get to look forward to. You should be able to query the or send a body request of JSON to the admin service. So it's a post request, and it will upload that request to the provider, and it will initiate an action on the device through BGB. So if we were to run this, we would see, and you can do this today just straight WMI. So I could just create this entry using a invoke WMI method and create the same entry to do the same thing, and then that immediately triggers BGP to do things. But what we're seeing with the admin services is bypassing this particular creating these entries in WMI, and it's communicating directly to the BGP server, which then communicates to the client. So we're already seeing that that replacement starting to occur.
Hey, Adam, we
Yes.
had a couple questions. Yeah, if you can show a little more on your WMI 4 ways, and maybe we can link to it later as well if you have it somewhere on your blog.
Sure. Yep. And sorry, I didn't actually even run any of it. I was just jumping through it. So, so the first part here is just a block of parameters to get it started. So I'm connecting to my ConfigMgr site server, and the namespace is root SMS site, and then my site code PS1, and then the class that I want to hit is SMSR system. The resource ID I'm not going to. Sorry, some of this is not used in this demo. So so get Wmi get WMI object. So that just uses the namespace, the class name, and then that's it. So it's just it's querying SMSR system. So this is equivalent to what we did in the Wmi Explorer earlier, where we said select star from SMSR system. This is exactly what that's doing. It's just using the PowerShell WMI provider to do that. Now PowerShell has WMI has a newer excuse me, it has a newer provider called this SIM. I don't remember what SIM stands for. But you can also use it to query instead of WMI, and it's technically preferred. Some things still aren't supported in SIM, but for the most part, I've tried to convert all of my queries and things over to SIM. Apparently, it's a little bit more efficient and things like that. But same exact thing, same results, which is what we want, right? Okay, so then this one is using the admin service. So this uses some string formatting to do this, but this is equivalent to what we had here in our browser before. So if we did SMS our system, we go and grab that. So if I'll just go ahead and, for clarity's sake, I like to variabilize things because that's the right way to do things. But so this is the URL that we're calling. And then inside PowerShell, it has a invoke REST method. So this is a REST API. So we want to do a REST method. We're doing a get. So this just says, hey, pull the content for us. And then it's using default credentials, and it will format as a table for us. So if I run that, we have the same set of data, and it's nicely formatted even. So we've been seeing it in the browser poorly formatted in JSON, and so now we can actually, in PowerShell, we can actually translate that into a nice clean table structure. So each of these you could save into a variable and then start doing work from it. The last one here is just where you would connect to your ConfigMgr site server. So where I opened PowerShell earlier from the console, said open up PowerShell ICE, this is the same code that I'm running here. So all this is doing is connecting me to my site server and then connecting to the PowerShell, or importing the PowerShell module from the primary site server so that I can connect to the provider there. And then I get access to the commandlets that are available in for the ConfigMgr PowerShell commandlets off of the primary. So I can hit run selection here, and that's going to be probably the least efficient because it actually does an individual query, but you can see it still returned everything back. So that's how we do that. And in fact, I have a lot of this stuff on my GitHub, but there's the code if you want it. Okay, so that's all of those things. All right, so now we're going to get into well, let me back up. Does everybody feel like I covered the kind of the what we're seeing with tenant attached? Okay, does everybody feel okay with that? I don't have a my tech preview environment isn't tenant attached, so I can't show you that yet. But there is a new functionality that just came out, has been coming out with the last couple tech previews, where you can run CM Pivot, use it from the MIM Admin Center without having to do anything else. It's just using the tenant attached connector to do that as well. You can now, I think, just with the 2007 preview that, or technical preview that got just released, you can, let me see, here we go, instead of just guessing at it. So in the 2007 features, tenant attach, you can view hardware inventory in the MIM Admin Center. And so that one's really cool. And what that's doing is that is using the admin service to query that data and return the inventory data to the console for you. So once again, the admin service is this magical thing that's just laying there doing all sorts of cool stuff for us, and they keep sneaking new stuff in here all the time on us, and I think it's fantastic. If you can't tell, I really like it. Okay, so now I'm going to do another thing that is very, well, I don't know. You decide. I wouldn't do it, certainly not in production, but it's a proof of concept that Nathan Zener and I were playing around with this and said, hey, I wonder if this would work. So if you've done anything with admin service or looked at it, you may have read a blog. Excuse me 1 minute. You may have read a blog by Nathan or by Sandy Sang about how to connect to the admin service over the internet. And man, I can't shake it, sorry. I also actually wrote one on running CM Pivot over the Cloud Management Gateway. It's somewhere out here. So anyway, there's several blogs on how to do this the right way, and but it's using the Cloud Management Gateway to talk to the admin service. And as we've seen in these demos, I have not yet once said you need to have the Cloud Management Gateway to make this work, because you don't. You just enable tenant attach and it works. So it's creating, essentially what's happening is they're creating their own gateway for us that we just don't see and aren't managing and stuff to do their own, the config manager side of things is creating its own pieces that it needs instead of the kind of more individually managed cloud management gateway / cloud DP with certs and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so these blogs talk through how to do it, but it requires a bunch of configuration and requires a cloud management gateway. So Nathan and I were talking about Azure App Proxy. I said, hey, I wonder how that works. I wonder if we could expose the admin service over Azure App Proxy. Azure App Proxy, application proxy, is a reverse proxy that allows you to publish your on-premises applications to the internet, but in a secure manner through Azure. To do that, first thing you need is a connector service, which I've already downloaded, but you can download it directly from there. And I'm going to install that. Now, in my previous demo, I actually stood up a separate admin service server. So I added another SMS provider to my environment, which is you have to do you have to run the config manager setup wizard to do site maintenance to be able to get there. But essentially, it lets you, I had a point there. Sorry, I'm typing my password and not doing that very well either. Okay, sorry. So so that right there just should have connected this proxy connector for me to get in. So let's see. Oh, sorry, Rick Gates asked, is tenant attach required for desktop analytics to access the computer data? No. So tenant attach is different than the stuff that's required for desktop analytics. Okay. So so now I've installed that proxy, and what we should hopefully see is that proxy service should be talking from my config manager primary up. Oh, sorry. The point I was trying to make was you can install a separate SMS provider on a different server by running the config manager setup wizard and then you modify the SMS provider and you can specify a new server. So that lets you have a standalone website server running your provider service that's not running on your primary site server. And as you can see, that's the one I orphaned out there. So I just created a new instance here. And now that we have that, we want to then go back to app proxy, and we do configure an app. And so this will be ConfigMgr and we can put in our internal URL to the admin service. Now, Nathan and I went back and forth on this, and we said, well, depending on where you hit it, you can specify what level you want to go. So you could restrict this to only admin service. Because if I do this, this essentially exposes my entire ConfigMgr management point and everything that's running in IIS to the cloud. Probably not desirable. Once again, big disclaimer. I don't know if you should do this. DJM's on the call right now. You may tell me to stop now. But proof of concept, just playing around with this, trying to see what you can do. I don't necessarily think you would really want to do this, but anyway, it was kind of cool to do. All right, so whenever I do this, it's going to give me this external URL, and I'll go ahead and hit add. So that's it. You just put in your internal URL, and so that connector that we created should proxy the traffic between the server and Azure here and the admins or the app proxy. And if we did it right, come on, baby. Okay, so now we have an admin service that's stood up using Azure App Proxy, and if I use the external URL to get to it, I should see, hopefully. Oh, shoot. Let's see. I missed something there. Hold on. Sorry. Where is it? Sorry, I think I need, so I think I set it up for pass-through is the deal here, which is even worse probably. But I think that I need to, oh, I know I did this before. Okay, we need to go and add and up and anybody know how to make sure they assign the user with access to this application? It must not be. Oh man, this worked in the other demo. Sorry. Let's see, test. Open application. Let's see, still the same problem. Let me sign in.
If you go back on your in Azure, there's a user and groups. I didn't see if you added anybody there. See that on the left? Yeah. See if you added anybody there. There you go.
That might be it. Yeah. So this should be who I'm logged in with. Maybe I somehow did this previously and it didn't. Nope. Oh man, well that's a fail. There's a way to permission the app for your site. I believe the grant consent. There we go. Sorry, I think that was the one. It's the granting for the whole organization. Only tested this like one time, so bear with me. Okay, we granted consent. Try again. Please work, please work, please work. Son of a gun. Internal. Well, boo. Sad. This did work.
Such is life. Such is.
Oh, there it is. Yes, yes, yes. We got it.
Go.
Okay, there it is. Okay, so that is hitting my admin service server. I hit admin service. Oh, I need to probably do v1.0. It's going to be something else. it's the, I just need to quickly watch my other video and see what I did. Huh? Okay. I know I had something else here. Set right. If I do Azure Active Directory auth, maybe that'll help. But I think pass-through should have worked. There wasn't much more to it than that. Single sign-on. Windows integrated. That's too complicated, not doing that. Yeah, that should have just worked, I think. Well, regardless, I at least got to the web server itself, as you could see, and the, or if I can do it from another box here, because it may just not be, it may not like the box I'm on. I don't even have Edge on here, apparently. There we go. This was way cooler before, I promise. Anyway.
Yeah, if this doesn't work, you could,
Gotcha.
if you want to try over the over our roundtable too, we could revisit there.
Yeah. So this is IIS messing with me with the permissions on it. Hey, there it is.
There we go.
Cool. So that's admin service over Azure App Proxy. And now this device is on the domain, so you may still not believe me. So now I'm minimizing that machine, and I'm minimizing this, and I'm going back to my desktop, and this device is not on the domain or anything. And I think I can still get to the admin service here. Come on, we can do it, we can do it. Well, it'll get there. All right, I'll let that one sit for just a minute. But the other cool bit to go along with this is I also stood up this other thing where I was goofing around with GIFs and Software Center. And so it also works with the admin service. So it's using the admin service to pull in all of this data that you see, all the titles of all the applications listed. And in tech previews, you can actually click this and it will launch Software Center and use the instant app install functionality that you have in the console today to initiate the install of that application into Software Center for you. So the only deficiency is that it doesn't have a way to know the device name because I can't pick up the device name from here, but it did actually just open, it's launching Software Center for me now, and it should take me to that app in my Software Center. Everything's running just a little bit slow. But that's also using admin service, and that's also running fully over the app proxy. So I've actually got this integrated directly into my Software Center as well, or into the actual Software Center. And it'll load in a minute as well. So anyway, that's kind of, you know, not as flashy as I was hoping it was going to be there, but you get the idea. We did Azure App Proxy, and so then I've got another query here that lets us do that. So then if I use the right proxy address here, then I should be able to do the same thing here. So I should be able to use PowerShell to get my user credentials and then allow me to query the admin service in PowerShell. And the best part about all of this is that, you know, think doing, you know, managing things on mobile devices, managing things from, yeah, that didn't like that, but it was close. So all of these things, the title of the slide was any device from anywhere. And that's kind of the goal here, is that looking at all of the ways that we can leverage the tools that are being produced and keep digging, looking at what's happening in the environment to you know, see what tools we can replace. So like Maybe you've got a custom API that you use to do imaging or other things with. Well, start looking in admin service, start checking it out. It can't, like I said, it's mostly read-only today, but it's coming. You're going to be able to do more things with it. You should be able to start swapping out and replacing some of your custom stuff that you've been using over the years, and start using admin service instead. Plus, we're starting to see much more tenant attached functionality getting enabled using it as well. So anyway, I think my time is done. If you've got any other questions, certainly post them in chat and I'll stick around. Or we can, if you think of other stuff, we can talk about it in the roundtable later. So thank you for your time, and hopefully this was informative. Or at least
entertaining and informative. Yeah, thanks, Adam. Really appreciate it.